Welcome to Bay Area Sports Report, and today I will be talking about Maxx Crosby, who has been back in discussions again, along with I want to shout out to a fan and tell how I became a Bay Area fan. And then we'll discuss about Jessie Bates, and then we'll discuss about the wide receiver core. So let's get right into this video. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe if you like this content, and let's get right into it. As you know, Maxx Crosby has been discussed a lot about in my videos. I've discussed about him maybe a bit too much. I think I've discussed him too much, but Max, Maxx Crosby is now back into the is now back into it, as reports are showing that he is now moving well. His knee is looking fine. It looks like he's doing okay right now. So I think that is great for Maxx Crosby. And now the question is now, can the 49ers now strike at this? Because there are some good reasons why. One, Nick Bosa and Michael have ACL injuries, and I think those do impact. I still think Bosa is gonna come back. I think he's still gonna be good. According to what he says, he's better than he ever was. So we'll see if that is true. Michael is not gonna come back during the middle of the season. So I don't know the status on that. Along with that, note the South Side report. George Kittle is looking well in his report, and it's looking like it's week 1. But I would suggest for you, George, to think on it and just see how you're feeling. Get doctor's recommendation if you're ready by week 1. And if he says he's not, if you are, then you can follow it. But if he says you're not, then you should listen. So, but for Maxx Crosby, I would love if the 49ers traded Crosby for the one reason is injuries, which I've mentioned. 2 is that they weren't good on sacks. Bryce Huff was solid, but now he's retired now because he wants to work with his brother, which is nice. And Keon White wasn't getting any pressure. Yatur wasn't getting a lot of pressure. I mean, it wasn't a very good squad when there's like a bunch of injuries. So I think that's another good reason. And then third, ask yourself, and this is my message to you, John. Do you feel good on your draft picks? When was the last time when you selected good draft picks? When was the last time you picked one? Think of that to yourself. And I could give you a hint, and it is in 2019 or 2018. I can't remember, but it starts at that. And they have not been good on draft picks. And I'm sorry on that. Like, I still believe Ricky Pearsall is a great guy. I think he could do great for this team, but he's just not been able to stay healthy. Along with that, Michael Williams kind of has an ACL injury, so we're not exactly sure on what's going to happen on that front, which is kind of a bit bad, especially for the 49ers, especially for a young guy. I mean, he is young, Michael, like 21 years old, but I feel like that is a bit of a concern, so I would kind of consider that. Along with that, Solomon Thomas was a bust, Trey Lance was a bust, Javon Kinlaw was a bust, Brandon Ayuk, who I thought was good, is now a bust now. So they have not selected anyone good this so far, so they haven't been exactly the best at selecting players. So it hasn't been good for them. And I would think going for Crosby right here and right now is the smart thing to do. Because, but but so far they're not looking at trading him right now. But later in the season, you have to at least consider it. Because you haven't been good on sacks. You haven't been hitting on draft picks. You're not sure if Bosa and Michael are going to be, I think, the same as they are. I'm sure Bosa will be fine, but I'm not sure about Michael. So I think I would suggest this. And this isn't about the Myles Garrett thing. It's just about helping the defense getting pressure. That's what this is about. So I think getting Maxx Crosby is a great fit. I think he can be a great guy alongside Nick Bosa. I would give up 2 first-round picks because I don't want to give up Michael Williams. Like, sure, Michael is not been the best, but you have to at least give him time. Give him at least 2 more years, and if he doesn't work out, then we could discuss on trading him or maybe getting rid of him. I guess we could discuss that later on. So yeah, but I would love Crosby to be on this team. I think he would be a great fit, and I mean he's been talked a lot, and I think it would make Niner fans very happy, especially on the Niners fans I will be talking about. So and then I'll discuss my story. But you know, but I would love Maxx Crosby to be on this team, and I think it would be a great fit. Now, I want to tell you all a story on, how I is, and this has to relate to a fan who was asking and was sending a message to Max, and I want to tell you guys it. So my first year, my first time when I was a sports fan, I was watching the 2015-2016 NBA Finals. I wasn't that interested in sports. I was just a kid. I was like probably like 5 or 6, probably. No, yeah, 5 or 6. And I was watching watching the finals with my family. They were celebrating, having fun on it. I never really understood what they were cheering about when I was thinking about it in my mind. But I did remember one name, and that was Steph Curry. And when I saw Steph make that three, and when they won that game, I was so inspired. I was so happy, and I didn't even know what to think on it. And I really wasn't interested in it, but it made me think on it a little, and I was very happy that they won. So I started cheering with them a little. Then I wasn't very interested after that, and then we move on to 2019, where the Niners made it to the Super Bowl. And the first thing I saw, I was wearing a Jimmy G sweater, and the first thing I saw was Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. Those two were my favorite team players on the 49ers. They're now back on the team, which is actually coincidental, actually. And those two, I saw them hitting people, getting interceptions, making hard hits, making tackles. Along with that, I was inspired by Jimmy Garoppolo on offense, Emmanuel Sanders, Joe Staley, Trent Williams, Kendrick Bourne, Debo Samuel, Raheem Mostert. Like I was so inspired by on how this team was playing. And then after that Super Bowl, they lost. And I felt so sad for my family. So I made a speech on it that we would make it to the Super Bowl one day. And I was feeling, I made that, I didn't know what came over me because I never even knew about sports. I never really knew about it, but I was feeling so sad for them, and, I told them that we'll make it back one day. And then 2020 to 2021 came, and that was during COVID, and that was when I started becoming a sports fan. I watched Steph Curry score 62 points with my dad, and then on, I was hooked into sports. Then I watched the 49ers, where they went through a lot of injuries, the most in 20 years of American football, which is embarrassing. Then I watched the Giants on how they won. Then in 2021 through 2022, I saw them make playoffs. Warriors made it to the playoffs. Then 2020, I think it was 2021, 2022. Warriors made the playoffs. They won a championship where I saw greatness for the first time, which was awesome. And I remember seeing clips. I was doing that, studying, and then before I did watched it, and I started studying on the Warriors, the Niners, the Giants, on what made them so great, and I was so inspired on how their culture was built and how they were able to make fans so happy and how they were able to get these good players and how their playing style fitted and how they developed. And I think this has been a cool thing. And then the Warriors made it to the playoffs. They won a championship. I think it was 2022 or 2022 and 2023 with Otto Porter and Jordan Poole. That was when I felt greatness on that. 2020, and then the Niners, they made it to the playoff in 2021 through 2022, and they lost that one against the Rams, which was kind of sad, and I'll never forget that mess. And then the Giants, they made it to the playoffs, but then they didn't exactly do good. They got eliminated by the Dodgers, which I pretty much remember that. If you know that, recall Giants fans. And then 2022 to 2023 for the Giants and Niners. Niners made it to the Super Bowl. They didn't. I promised that they lost the Super Bowl. And then the Giants got eliminated from the playoffs. They didn't made it. So and then now I move on to the and then 2024, 2023 to 2024, and then 2025 to 2026. I saw them make it to the playoffs or tried Giants. They tried to make it to playoffs, but they both got eliminated on those seasons. And then now the Niners, they made it to the playoffs twice, but they both lost. So and then for Warriors, they made it to the playoffs twice and they lost those also. But that's but and now I move on to the present day. So I think sports impacted me a lot, and I think it's really inspired me too. So I think it was great for me. I think it was it's a nice experience to have, and I think it was such a great. I was so glad that I got into sports. So I'm happy on it, and that's my whole story on how I became a Niners, Giants, and Warriors fan. I was a Warriors fan at first, but then Niners and Giants, I was hooked into it. And now we're gonna move on to actually the real reason why I'm talking about my story is this young fan. As there was an event, and I'll play the video. As a young fan was asking Crosby a bit of a question in this event. And I liked that video. That was so cute. I think having him in and do you hear what he says? You never know. And I think there is a chance that Maxx Crosby could come here. It just has to depend on where the Raiders are at, if they are confident in this team. So we'll just have to see. And then this video, I was very touched in this. You have to watch this, and I was very touched. So check this out. So, to Kim, you've made me and others inspired. And it's like Max says, you never know. And you're right. Greatness is, and when I've encountered a lot of sports and when I've went over this Niners history, there's a timeline, a wormhole of the Niners when they won those 5 Super Bowls back then. There was greatness in them, in defense and on offense and in the coaching staff. There was greatness in them. And right now, in this team, right now, there is greatness right now in each of them. In maybe this last year, because we all know that this may be the last year the Niners may win this, may come back in the Super Bowl. This may be their last year entering their prime. Fred Warner, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. This may be their last chance. And I still see greatness in them, like you said, Kim. And I think your message to Niners fans and to Max is inspiring to me. And I just want to say thank you. You're an inspiration. And you're right that Niners fans, they haven't experienced anything like this since the last time the Bay came in. And my dad, and I always remember this from my dad, is you may want to be in highlight reels and get big contracts and may have show highlights of how good you are. But if you want to make a legacy and make that legacy, it's that you have to ask yourself, and this is to you, Max, do you want to make a legacy on people remembering you for generations on how good you are? Or do you want to be a guy who just made a bunch of awards and just be highlight reels? Like, that's good, but do you want to be more than that? Or do you want to just stick to it? And to Kim, you are an inspiration. Keep having faith, keep having hope for this team, and never give up. And I've learned that a lot. I've given up a lot in my times, I think, in especially in 2023. But I realized that to never give up and keep holding on to faith. And I think you've made me inspired. So keep on making messages. You never know what's going to happen. Like Maxx Crosby says, you never know. And I think this team does have a bright future, especially if they make the right moves. So, to Kim, you're an inspiration. Keep on cheering for the Niners. Niner fans, keep on cheering. Do not give up on hope. Keep on cheering for this team. You never know what's going to happen. Now, moving on to Jessie Bates III. As he's a great safety, and I would think that it's a good thing. And there was a lot of, and the quote to Kim, there was a lot of greatness in these safety duos. Deshaun Goldston and Dante Whitner. Deshaun Gibson and Tefano Hufanga. Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward. Like, all those guys had greatness in them, who had picks, who were good at tackling, who were hard hitting. I think Jessie Bates is one of these guys. I think he's a great safety. He's 6'1", 210 pounds. He's 29 years old. He has 57 solo tackles, 1 forced fumble, 3 interceptions, 6 passes defended. I think this is a great stat for this team, especially for Atlanta. They have Billy Bowman Jr. They have Sidney Brown Jr. They have a good safety in Xavier Watts. I think trading Jessie Bates is also a bit interesting. I think coming down to this, I think it would come down maybe second round pick, possibly. Maybe trade Jair Brown, maybe. Also, kind of. Because, look, I think Jair Brown has the potential to be great. Like I've always loved Jair, but I think, but what's in common with safety groups is that you have one good safety who's young, who can hit tackles or picks. But right now, you have safeties who can just hit hard and make tackles and make a little bit of interceptions. Now you need a veteran who can make interceptions a little bit of tackles, and a very good on coverage. That is Jessie Bates III. And I think he would fit perfectly for the 49ers, especially that Raheem Morris is the defensive coordinator for the 49ers now. So I think this is a great move for the 49ers, and I think it would be perfect. He's also in Wake Forest, same school as Malik Mustafa, so I think they would get along very well, in my view. Now moving on to my last section, I think this receiver core is great for the 49ers. I'm not going to talk about Ayuk, okay? Like, I don't want to talk about it because I'm not one of those guys talking about Ayuk. So, I'm not one of those guys. But Mike Evans, I think he's going to be a great guy, solid X receiver. I mean, sure, they do Rams first game in Australia. It's actually on Netflix. No, shouldn't tune that. 5:35 p.m. It's a good team. I won't lie. Of Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie, but the question is, can you stop Mike Evans? And I don't think you can because he's a strong receiver. He's a good player. He's tough. He's physical. And I think he's a great fit for the 49ers, especially for Alec Pierce. I mean, I wanted him, but he was going to ask for a lot of money, and I'm kind of glad we didn't give that much. So we'll see if he does turn out to be the good receiver, so you never know. But Ricky Pearsall, I hope he can make that big, humongous leap and be that receiver too. And I hope he could be there. This is the last chance for Pearsall before he has to accept his option. I think that's the year. I think this is his last year and last chance to make it, because that way, because if he doesn't step up and doesn't stay healthy, he may have to go, and this has to be another first round pick bust. Christian Kirk, DeJon Stribling, Demarcus Robinson. So this is an interesting competition. I don't think Christian Kirk is there. He's been injured a lot, which is not a good thing. He could just be that backup slot receiver. Demarcus Robinson has a chance to, since he studied the system, but I would love if Shanahan used DeJon Stribling. Like, I get it, he's not familiar with the coaching system, but I would love it if DeJon Stribling can just take over that slot receiver spot. Then you have a physical receiver and a deep ball threat. You have 3 deep ball threats in Stribling, Pearsall, and Evans. And Stribling can also be a slot guy, which is the great thing. He could be like that Jawan Jennings guy. Look, I know that I'm taking a big leap of faith on that, but trust me, I've looked at his highlights 4 times already, and I can already see that he's a great receiver on this team. As for Watkins and Cowing, I think they could be great. I think if they could be like good punt returners to replace Sky Moore, who is a very good punt returner in my view, then I think they could be great. But as for receiving, I think Cowing and Watkins so far they've taken big leaps. A lot of people are talking high faith, are hopeful for them, and are having high faith in them. So we'll see we'll see what happens next on that. But I think right now I feel confident in them. I think they're quick receivers. They're very similar. They really run deep threats. They can run in the slot. So I think if they can just stay healthy, then I think they have a chance to contribute both in special teams and on offense. But overall, I feel like this Niners team, this may be the last chance. And to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, Raheem Morris, let me ask yourselves these questions. Do you feel and if you want to feel confident in this team, just analyze it, see how it goes, and then ask yourselves these questions. Do we think we need to make moves? Do you think this team is good enough? Have you made good draft picks? Have you made any good decisions? And last thing, is Maxx Crosby and Jessie Bates the chance for us to make it to the Super Bowl? Or do you guys want to just rebuild? That's the question you guys need to ask yourselves. So, this is Bay Area Sports Report, signing off.